Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to Ed Up on the Ed Up Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Dr. Joe Salustio back in another episode. I'm really excited about this guest today. Decorated veteran. Anytime we can talk to somebody who has served the U.S. military, I am always in awe of what people can accomplish and the freedoms that they allow us to have to do this podcast and honor their work and service. So very, very excited. With me, of course, is the one and only, I would say he's a regular guest host. Would you say that? Douglas Carlson, head of partnerships with Lead Squared?
I think at this point, I'm family, so I'm happy to be here.
Wait, let me play your music.
Oh, I love it.
All right, well, I didn't do it right, but there was your entrance music. I'm using it here. I'm podcasting live, as you know, but we have a lot of good music that we're playing around here. Douglas, what's going on in your world at Lead Squared? I mean, you're in and around higher ed. Anything popping out trends-wise that you want to bring it up?
Oh man, there's the obvious things that people have talked a lot about, like the enrollment cliff, whether it's here, whether it's coming a year from now, those pieces. FAFSA, obviously, it's a big piece. And really what I'm excited to talk to the general here about, or retired general rather, is what that means for specific locations, like like being based in Knoxville, which has a population explosion, what that means for the university. So that's one of the many things I'm really excited to talk about.
Well, let's bring him in now. Let's get his introduction right, because I got to make sure I get it right and honor his background. Here we go. He is Jason T. Evans, retired Lieutenant General and Chief Operating Officer of Tennessee State University. Let the music play. Jason, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it, and I'm honored to be here. And thanks for the opportunity. And Doug, it's an honor to be here with you as well.
Well, before we get into Tennessee State University, I do want I was on your LinkedIn checking you out. You have an incredible military background. Would you mind just indulging us and telling us about your background in the U.S. military and your experience there?
Sure. So I can't go without recognizing the generations that I come from. I have to give honor. My grandfather served in World War II. My father was a 30-year Air Force veteran and served in Vietnam. And then I consequently served 40 years in the United States Army. And I retired about almost 2 years ago.
And so you said higher education. Boy, oh boy, there's nothing better than higher ed. I'm going to get into higher ed. Did you trip and fall into this opportunity? Did you have eyes on higher ed? Can you talk about your transition?
Yes, certainly. And so I view what I did in the Army as a public servant. I was a public servant on a national level, right? And so now I'm here at a public school at a state level. And so really, it was about working with people. I wanted a different experience other than the federal government, and learn a little bit about how business works. And so colleges, they run like businesses, but the one thing that's constant is its people. And I love working with people, and the people here in higher ed are wonderful to work with, as they were in the Department of Defense and the Army.
Douglas, over to you, because I know you've got a few questions.
Yeah, and really to build on that, I'm always curious, what are the things that have been like very clear transferable skills that you've learned in the military that just apply today? And what are the things that maybe don't have as much transferability? So I'm always really curious.
So I think in terms of leadership, it's always the soft skills, right? And so in any organization, and I've learned this in the Army, it's teamwork, and it's about working with people and working together for a common cause, for a mission to accomplish something. And so what you learn there is that people are the most important resource in an organization, and you have to treat it as such. And that skill is transferred to any organization, that nothing happens of success for you as an individual, but ostensibly larger to an organization, unless people are making it happen. And that's the same in this organization in higher ed. So I think what is really transferable is the military. While it's discipline and structure, you work with people every day. And from the time that you come in the military as a junior officer, as a second lieutenant, you are entrusted with the care and welfare of people and resources and buildings and equipment. So the responsibility comes to you quick, and it just it just repeats itself and it gets larger and larger and larger. But really, I'll tell you what's really transferable is working with people and understanding how to take care of people. And I think it is transferred here. I think the only thing that's different from organization to organization is their vision and mission and how they go about doing it. But in the end, it takes someone who can work collaboratively, who can create partnerships, and who can empower people to be successful.
Tell them like it is.
No, that's a fantastic answer, and that makes all the sense in the world. And forgive me, maybe I'm jumping a little ahead in the conversation, but I really can't help myself. As kind of one of my opening remarks was, Nashville has grown significantly. It's like one of the places that people want to come to. It's a very hot spot. In the reverse, kind of the national scene, we're seeing potentially slowdowns in enrollment, some school closures. So I'm really curious about how that's affecting your school, your landscape, what that means. Is the school rising with the city? How do you work together? So a lot to unpack there, but I would love to go down that road.
So it's a great question, and I think we're tackling it in the right way as a state. And let me explain why. We have the For the Future campaign, which is 10 public state universities here in Tennessee that have all come together as a conglomerate, understanding the enrollment challenges, understanding the economic challenges, but more importantly, the importance of a four-year degree in a public school, right? And so we've started in this campaign, and we're in first year of it, and we're focused really on communicating and collaborating and creating relationships with the leaders. And the leaders are the government leaders, because we've had the Day on the Hill, and that is business leaders. We had engagements with the business leaders in Chamber of Commerce, and as well as starting the engagement across the 96 counties in Tennessee with the community leaders. And that's what's really for the future is about, is highlighting the importance of a four-year education, because really what you're trying to do is empower people and then empower the community and create workforce development, talent management, because of what you talked about. Nashville is growing, it's exploding. And why not take advantage with this campaign to empower the workforce, to train the workforce? Because if you get a four-year college degree, and what we've learned in the Army is someone with a college degree has what? They have the aptitude to be trained, and they can learn. And this is what a city with the economic challenges or opportunity explosions have. You want these kinds of people. And that's why you have For the Future campaign with the 10 public universities collaborating and partnering. So look, there's strength in numbers, right? So why would TSU go it alone? Not only that, this campaign allows TSU and us to put our brand on display.
I like that.
We embrace the opportunity and challenges here. TSU has a long history of academic excellence. We're two-time Grammy Award winning the Aristocrats of Bands. We've got the first of the Levi Watkins medical cohort going to Meharry Medical School.
Epic.
And the first HBCU to have a hockey team. How about that?
Oh,
really? Love that. Well, it's funny because you're talking about the value of a four-year degree, and Jason, this is an ongoing, divisive, very serious conversation that's going on in and around higher ed right now, that the degree doesn't have value or somehow has been diluted. And there's this narrative, there's narrative out there that, maybe you shouldn't go to college anymore. You wonder who's having that conversation with their kids or with, as an adult deciding not to go to college. But it is out there, and social media doesn't help it. Are we selling the students against that now? Or do you think that students are coming in debating whether they should go to college or not? Or you think maybe it's overhyped?
No, I think it is a debate. And I think what I would say is you want to improve your skill set. You want to improve your professional development. I'm not going to sit here and say that someone who doesn't go to college can't be successful. We have plenty of examples of people who have been able to do that. But I tell you what, we exponentially have even more examples of people who have gone on four-year degrees. And you see in the workforce, and this is the reason why we have the For the Future campaign. We're trying to highlight the importance of a four-year degree, how it is helpful for your professional development, your skill development, right? Because what we're talking about is future leaders here of America, of Tennessee. And so we want those people to be developed. We want to partner with the community so that you can create a talent bench and do succession planning, and you want to provide them with the best worker you can get. And I think for your degree, you demonstrate that aptitude, you are more easily to train and teach and coach and prepare for the future.
Douglas, you want to add anything to that? Because you know this is ongoing.
Yeah, it's an interesting debate. It feels like a real left turn for kind of almost the U.S. society, where the last 50 years it's been very clear one of the pathways to success is higher education. And I'd be curious, when you have students that are making this or having this debate, is there the right venue to be having this conversation? And what I mean by that is traditionally we have students kind of come to campus and there's a process, but we have this whole kind of digital age now where folks are interacting more digitally for these conversations. So I'd be curious, has this conversation changed maybe venue or where you're trying to have the conversation with students and really show the value not only of your school, but the For the Future campaign? I'd just be curious like how you're communicating it.
Well, so that's a great point. I think you have to communicate across all mediums.
Yeah.
For the campaign, we have some very professional and slick and appealing commercials on the TV. You can still watch TV, whether it's on their phone, their iPad, and it gets at the purpose of the degree and how it has paid dividends back into the growth of an economy or an innovation within the state. We communicate that through having forums here on the university, people coming and talking about it.
Yeah.
When we have tours here, we talk about it. We have them talk to other students their age and try, because a lot of this is generational, right? So you want to involve everyone in this and all mediums of communication, social media, bring them here so they can actually see the campus, interact with students and be inspired by what they hear these students are able to do. Medical school, athletes. I mean, if you look at TSU's history, it's not just, that we have national fame with alumni. We have international fame with alumni, in all industries. And that's what you try to inspire them and show them someone that looks like them that has gone on to be very successful in every industry of America.
Jason, I want to just give you the opportunity, since you're here and we're talking about HBCUs and you alluded to it. How is it going? Are students seeing a greater value in attending an HBCU now that there's been FAFSA disruption, that maybe the question of value of higher education is there? Do they see an HBCU and go, you know what, I feel like I need to go there and I'm going to have a better time, a better experience there? I know we're seeing a resurgence in HBCUs. There's a lot of students who are really attending in greater numbers. Is this an opportunity to not take advantage, but to better sell the value proposition of an HBCU when there's been disruption across an industry? Like, does it feel more protection? There's almost like, you're going to be there amongst people that look like you. And so this is a better path forward, a safer path forward.
Well, so I'll put it to you like this: the brand is strong. And it goes back to what I just said about we can provide many examples of not just, local alumni success, but national alumni success, international alumni success. And we have those alumni, they come back and they engage during homecoming. We've got the 67 TSU alumni annual convention or summit coming up in a couple of weeks. These are opportunities where alumni come back and they engage. I think the brand in terms of HBCU is strong. And I think that's what is attracting young people to come here. But more so, they see the success of people who matriculate through here. They see the environment. It's a welcoming, it's a family atmosphere. They can identify, and it's academic excellence. And so they know what they're going to get when they get here. They know the sky is the limit when they leave here. They're empowered, they have confidence, and they're well educated because TSU, as well as the other 10 public universities in the For the Future campaign, we all have a long history of academic excellence with students that attend.
Go ahead, Douglas. I see you
and
chomping at the bit.
thank you.
I saw your wheels
You know me too
turning.
well at this point, Joe. Well, and I'm also really curious. You mentioned a couple different constituencies, and the one that stands out for me is kind of companies and the relationships you have there, because that's the obvious next step. That's why you go to college. Are there certain industries you're trying to prepare students for? One, because they're already in Tennessee, or two, that you're trying to build in Tennessee, and that may be where the interaction with the political spectrum comes in as well. But I'd be really curious about kind of the other side and what you're preparing students for.
So I think it's all of it. I think you prepare students for all of it. I think clearly STEM is one of those that's on leading, and technology. We have a great technology AI program here, great business program. I just mentioned the first cohort of the Levi Watkins cohort. They're all going to medical school at Meharry Medical College, which is an initiative. So I would tell you the idea is all industries, right?
Got
So
it.
if you have a city like Nashville that is growing economically, you need people across the spectrum. You need engineers, right?
Yeah.
You need people in all the STEM. You need people. You need policemen. You need lawyers. You need medical folks. I mean, there's plenty of medical facilities here in the Nashville area. So I would tell you, the aim is across the spectrum of getting. That's why I talk about the workforce development, right? And that's the importance of the For the Future campaign. So one, we want to have we talked about, we got to have a relationship with these communities. That's For the Future has been able to help bridge that with government leaders, with the business leaders, and now, as the 96 counties in Tennessee, and we're on the verge of reaching out to them and having the same conversation with them. So I think it's all the industries, quite frankly.
Got it.
I like your style, dude.
And I'd actually be curious to zoom in for your experience as well. So, you're the chief operating officer there. What attracted you to that role, and what are the things that you really want to push and accomplish as this next step in your career?
Before you answer that, can I ask you, Jason, a chief operating officer is a very well-known title for business and industry, very less adopted in higher education. How did that come about? And it's interesting because there aren't many. Aren't many COOs in higher ed. Maybe talk about your oversight a little bit before you talk about maybe what you want to accomplish.
Certainly. So I'm Tennessee State University's first chief operating officer, and so as part of my retirement, as I alluded to earlier, I wanted to get out in the private world, private industry. I've been in DOD. I think I had some opportunities to go back to DOD. My family was like, well, why don't you try something different? And so I seen the position, I applied, and here I am. And so you're right, there's not many colleges have it, but it's not any different than the experience I had in the Army in terms of leadership at the strategic and operational level, leadership, organizational leadership, program management, and planning. That's what we do in the Army, and we do that with people day in and day out. So it was a perfect fit, and so many of those attributes and skills that I had in the Army are transferable here. You have to plan in the day. You do program management here. You do organizational leadership here. The mission may be slightly different because the mission here is higher education and educating people getting out, but the same is for the Army. My job and my background in leadership was about empowering the institution to take care of people so they can do their job. My job is to empower this institution so that it can take care of the students, faculty, the staff, and ostensibly our stakeholders, so we could be successful, but students first. And so those things are almost one and the same when you're talking about what things you need to do to empower the institution so they can take care of people. And that's daily operations, that's planning, that could be For my focus is the police department, customer relations. We stood up a customer relations office here. It's the Reserve Officer Training Program. It's the disability agency, and it's enrollment management. And so, those things are very key to ensuring the institution is making sure students have an environment that they can think, work, and serve in.
Amazing.
I got to ask you a burning question.
Yeah.
The whole time you've been talking, I've been waiting for the right moment. What's harder to change? Something in the U.S. military or something in an institution, and why?
So the U.S. military is an institution. So here's what I will tell you. What I learned is change. There's nothing more constant than change, and you embrace it. I don't care what institution you're in. And if you're going to implement the change, you have to put process and procedures in place to monitor it, and you have to have metrics and data to measure it to make sure that the change that you're asking or the changes you're implementing is effective. Otherwise, if you don't do those things, you might be implementing change that is counterproductive and might be a poor use of people's time. So I see change in the military in that institution organization the same way I see change here, because it's about people, right? You're going to have to change people and culture and lead them through the change. And so I see the way you do that the same. Now, in the military, sometimes that change has a greater sense of urgency than it will here, because of the obvious reason in the military, you're fighting and winning America's wars. You may have to deploy, and so there may be a greater sense of urgency. So, but it's still change. And if you have a greater sense of urgency, you just have to implement faster. But it's still about empowering people, leading people, inspiring people, and getting them around the change collaboratively, teamwork to implement the change.
I've always found that creating the sense of urgency is the most difficult part in higher. And I don't know anything about the U.S. military and what you experience, but in higher education, I've been in it for 23 years. And sometimes creating that sense of urgency when it doesn't exist, even if you try to wrap it around students, is very difficult because we become set in our ways. I'm sure it's true of the military too. You have people that have a process, they don't want to change it. They feel like their job might be threatened if they go along with a process change because, AI is going to take all the jobs now, of course. But creating sense of urgency is hard, and sustaining it through change. Do you have any tips for the leaders out there on how to create a sense of urgency and sustain it?
Certainly. So I would refer you to John Cotter's leading change, the 8-step method leading change. And I use that as a marker. And so first of all, you have to explain to people the why, the purpose, and the problem you're trying to solve, right? And you have to communicate with them, and you have to involve them in the problem you're trying to solve, the vision or mission you're trying to create, and then they have to see themselves in it. So for example, their performance objectives, their mission has to be linked, or their duties have to be linked to that vision and mission. They have to see how they're going to impact the end state and the outcome. You have to explain that to them. And it's not all rosy, because like you said, they're in culture. Sometimes there are people who are resistant to change. My method was to always stand up in front of the group of people and say, hey, this is what we have to do. This is how we think we need to do it. Here's the preliminary vision and mission. I'm going to send this all out to you guys. Give me your feedback. You come back and say, hey, I've gotten the feedback, and here's where we are with it. Here's going to be the mission. Here's the vision, and we've got here's how we're going to do it, right? In ways and means. And then you have to keep communicating with people. Now, you may have some people that continue to resist, but I always think the best approach to change is being transparent and communicating with people, and making them see the sense of urgency and what the outcome or impact will be of not doing it or doing it. In the military, if you don't do it, it could be, treasure and blood if you don't do it, right? Here in an academic environment, it could mean not getting kids to matriculate to the school in a proper way. So that's the tip for me, is I refer you to Leading Change, John Cotter's book, Leading Change. I think that's a good way, a good method of approaching change.
100%.
Douglas.
I was about to say, I've literally just added this to my book list, so thank you. I always appreciate recommendations for those pieces. And also be curious, so you clearly had a successful armed forces career. A part of higher education, just traditionally, is you have ROTC on campus, it potentially is a pathway into the military in other areas. I'd be curious, is that something you've been tasked with, or something you're thinking about of how to ultimately engage with the armed services through the university, or is there already programs there that you're supporting? I'd just be curious if there's any interaction there.
Oh, there's a program here. I have oversight for the ROTC, although it's Air Force.
I thought you might, yeah.
Although it's Air Force ROTC, I embrace it because my father was Air Force. But we're in the throes of getting an Army ROTC unit here. Right now the Army ROTC folks that attend school here go over to Vanderbilt. And I just attended a wonderful ceremony where you had over 36 midshipmen, Marines, and Army be commissioned. And so I still advocate for the armed forces. When you look at less than 0.5% of people serve in the military, we are still in need of young Americans to serve. We are the greatest military force on this earth, and we will only be able to maintain that by people raising their right hand and saying, "I will." Right, and go do that and serve their country. I enjoyed being a soldier. I love serving my country, and so I try to, when I talk to young people, I try to pass on that same kind of passion as an option for them. So I'm in full support of the ROTC here because I understand the need. I know right now the armed forces are challenged with enlistment, in some cases retaining military folks. And so I'm still an advocate for that because I know what that means for our country. I know what that means for our freedoms, and I know how dangerous our world can be.
And forgive me as well, because I'm also just so kind of curious about some of the differences. So, in the military, at some point, I suspect you had command over a number of officers and a number of folks. And in your current responsibilities, I suspect you have quite a few folks reporting to you. How are those structures different? How do you think about them? And maybe also, how are they the same? And just be curious, because these are both large organizations with a lot of people and you have a lot of responsibility. And I'm just wondering if you come at it from a different strategy, different mindset, and kind of your point, how do you kind of operationalize and create urgency?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I've had a lot of experience in the military with complex organizations. Universities, I consider them a complex organization. Every organization has hierarchy, right? It doesn't matter what you call it, they have a hierarchy. I think my approach to any new organization is to come in and you assess the culture, and you assess that culture against the vision and mission before you start making changes. I had command of the Army's Human Resources Command, which is over 3,000 people. And I'm here in oversight of the COO, and I have roughly 100 people. It's the same approach. You have to understand what the culture is. You have to understand the vision and mission and the strategic plan, and you rally everyone around that, right? And if there needs to be, in some cases, you do need a strategic assessment. That's part of using a SWOT, and you reset based on, has the external environment changed, has your mission changed, then you may have to reset the vision and mission, which means you may have to implement change. But I've taken the same approach at evaluating and leading organizations. It's about people. And if you don't come in my mind, that people are your most important resource, that's how you're going to get things done. And you have to figure out how you're going to empower them, inspire them, and give them the resources that they need. Sometimes that's upskilling, reskilling, but you have to understand the people, and you have to get the people behind the vision and mission. I don't care how large that organization, how small, it comes down to the people.
Well, and I'm getting super, super specific here, but my understanding, at least in the military, mission has maybe a little bit of a different connotation than it does maybe in the business world and elsewhere. One, can you just confirm that I have that right? And two, can you explain how mission might be a bit different in a military lingo or context than maybe elsewhere?
I think they're one and the same. I think the mission tells the organization what it's going to do. And the vision is kind of how you're going to get there, right? What you see out 5, 10, 20, 30 years. That mission is really describing what you're doing, what your competency is, what you're going to accomplish. In the military, it's go fight and win wars, right? In a larger context. But some of those are more specific in terms of logistics, ordnance, aviation, tanks, infantry. They have a more specific mission, but the larger mission that they're supporting is the fight and win wars, right?
Got it.
Rapidly deploy, be anywhere in the world, and go fight and win wars. Here out in the business, it may be a little bit different because the bottom line is about the money.
Sure.
In our bottom line really in DOD is blood and treasure, is people, right? So that's sacred. And so there's a higher level of consciousness because it's the health and life and welfare of people. And what you do may be consequential. What you may not do as a leader is consequential to someone's health, life, and welfare. And that's why I embrace the idea of it is about people and you got to take care of them. And I think in the military, that is much more consequential sometimes than the private sector.
Sure.
Because the mission, we're not doing that for a bottom line or for money. We're doing it for our country. In business, sometimes you're doing it for a bottom line and you're having to the profit. Our profit is that we're keeping you safe, we're keeping Joe safe, everybody can exercise their civil liberties and live in this great country of ours like no other country.
I'll tell you, I really respect what you're saying. I want to ask you a quick question as we get close to the end of the podcast and closed out. Did you find that you're intimidating those people that you were about to lead as COO? Coming from, I think of a COO coming in, you go, it's a business guy, okay, whatever. Lieutenant General, retired from the U.S. Army, coming in as COO is kind of a different story. I'm going, oh man, like the discipline, what is he going to be like? He's going to, there must have been that feeling you had to overcome to let people know, okay, I'm still a person here, right? I'm still going to lead you, but I guarantee you people were scared out of their boots.
No, I think so. We in the military sometimes get characterized as being authoritarians, right, in command. It couldn't be further from the truth. Let me just tell you, my 40 years in the military, at every duty assignment and every deployment, there were non-uniform wearing people that I worked with. So I worked with civilians. I worked with people from all different countries. I think the thing I try to explain to people is I've worked with a diverse group of people, not just soldiers. It wasn't about yelling and screaming orders. That's not how it is. We learned how to lead through empathy and compassion. And you learn that in the military because, as I mentioned before, people are your most important resources, and you're entrusted with that person's well-being. And that's something that you have to take very serious. So, no, I didn't come in here like that, but I people expect that from you because there's sometimes this perception that we in the military, we're going to come in and we're barking and shouting orders. Nah, that's for the
Execute Order 66.
Doesn't work that way, right?
You have to be able to inspire and lead and empower people and show empathy and compassion. And that means you got to take care of people.
What else do you want to say about Tennessee State University? And tell us what you see for the future of higher education to close us out, Jason.
Look, I'm just honored to be here in this long legacy of academic excellence and producing outstanding Americans and leaders that this institution has done for a long time, and I'm privileged to be here. I'm also honored and privileged to be part of the For the Future campaign, which I think is really highlighting, to get to your point, Joe, the importance of a four-year education and how this particular campaign is really good for the community and the workforce here and good for people in terms of your skill and your professional development for the future.
What do you think, Douglas? I mean, honored to interview this gentleman here, right? With all his military experience, and it is an honor.
Very, very much so. I was really looking forward to this one. And actually, you already did an amazing job of making a recommendation. So I would love to add one more question. So we already talked about leading change, but thinking about your experience both in the military and higher education, this is very much a higher education focused podcast. Is there an additional book that you would maybe recommend folks read or understand from your background that might help them continue to be more successful, or folks that would think about bringing in a different viewpoint from your experience to higher education?
Yeah, the Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
Classic. Yep.
You read that book, that basically, look, the whole idea of people or the most important resource is how you're going to choose to interact with people, right? How you're going to choose to collaborate, how you're going to choose to be value added to them, how you're going to choose to build teams. And I think if you read that book, it'll give you insight into how you negotiate with people, how you can make somebody feel important in a conversation, even if it's an adversarial conversation. I'm a big proponent of, hey, look, relationships matter. Even the most difficult relationships matter. You and I don't have to like each other, but if we have a common goal, we got to get to that common ground and have that professional conversation so we can achieve the mission or that objective. And so it really is human dynamics and how you are going to choose to embrace and deal with not just military people, all types of people, right? And understanding that the diversity of people is powerful when you're talking about the outcome of achieving a solution to a challenge or a problem. I never have to be the smartest person in the room. What I have to do is get the smartest people in the room with me to come up with the smartest option, the smartest course of action, or the smartest option, or the smartest resolution to the problem.
I'll work for you, Jason. Douglas will too. I mean, I think there's natural leaders, and I love the way you talk about leadership. It's much appreciated you being here. He's Douglas Carlson. He's head of partnerships, my guest co-host, frequent guest co-host now, ladies and gentlemen. And the one and only, I would suggest you connect with him on LinkedIn. His background is amazing, and I mean it. He is Jason T. Evans, retired lieutenant general and current chief operating officer at Tennessee State University. Jason, it has been an honor to host you today. We hope you had fun too.
Likewise, it's been a pleasure to talk to both of you. Hopefully our paths will cross again, and it's a privilege to be here. Thank you very much.
Everybody, there you have it. You've just ed upped